Hello everyone and welcome to the Redmen TV. I'm Steve Hoare, that is Dan Club, that is Lewis Ashmore. We are here for the uncensored match build-up. Yes, Bournemouth versus Liverpool, Vitality Stadium, 3 p.m. Saturday. And yeah, huge, massive game. Whatever adjective you want to describe, that means enormous. There's another one for you. This is it. You would never have thought that a trip to Bournemouth would be as significant as it is, but it's credit to Liverpool and credit to AFC Bournemouth, actually, that the game is so huge. Lewis, nice one for joining us, pal. And the reason this game in particular, obviously, in terms of league standard from a Liverpool point of view, we know why it's so big. But it's such a tough game just because how good Bournemouth have been recently. You know, I think it's 12 games unbeaten. Their last 2 games, they have wiped the floor with Newcastle at Newcastle and then absolutely destroyed the Nottingham Forest side who nobody could score against. Yeah. And they, again, wiped the floor with them. It feels like this is the Premier League's best team against probably the most informed team in the Premier League so far. And yeah, it's a huge occasion for both.
Yeah, and credit to Bournemouth. They've been absolutely fantastic this season. The recruitment's been brilliant. They lost Dominic Solanke, and I think a lot of people thought, they've lost their main striker now, they're going to struggle. They've replaced them brilliantly. They've not just one attacking player, they've got so many options. And the fact that they're so shrewd with such a limited crowd capacity they've got, they don't earn as much money or have as much money as other sides. They've been brilliant this season. And like you said, Forest, we struggled against them twice. Newcastle, we struggled against them, and they absolutely blew them out the water. They've beat Arsenal, Tottenham, City. They're a really good side. And I think they're one of these teams that now, they're this season's Aston Villa of last season, the season before Newcastle. They've been unbelievable. So yeah, it's going to be really tough.
They lost down 2-1 at home to Brighton on November 23rd. I was going to read out their run since then. Beat Wolves, beat Spurs, beat Ipswich, drew with West Ham, battered Man United at Old Trafford, drew with Palace, drew with Fulham, beat Everton, battered West Brom in the Cup, drew with Chelsea, battered Newcastle 4-1 and beat Nottingham Forest 5-0. They're a team who were tough to beat. There's some results in there, right, that you actually think, they're not great results. Like, I'm not sure that they'd be pleased to draw 0-0 with Crystal Palace at home. I'm not sure they were thrilled to draw with West Ham. But what they've shown is that, you know, when they don't lose, and they take points off the big teams. Lewis mentioned before, earlier on in the season. Obviously, they got the better of Arsenal in that game. They got the better of Manchester City. They're a proper team.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that, you know, that's testament to the recruitment in terms of the playing staff, like Lewis mentioned, but it's testament to Antonio Viola as well, and the job that he's managed to do there. Because not only did they lose Dominic Solanke over the summer, which a lot of people would have looked at and gone, I'm not sure how Bournemouth react and how they recover from that necessarily. They went in the market and did it quite well, but they've since lost the striker that was brought in to replace him, and they haven't batted an eyelid. They've just carried on seamlessly. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, they found a different way of doing it. And Iviola garnered a reputation in Spain for sort of giving out bloody noses left, right, and centre to the perceived bigger boys. So it hasn't shocked me that he's done that almost exclusively since he arrived. But the recent run of form, 12 unbeaten, and as you mentioned, the 2 big scalps recently is absolutely remarkable stuff. And yeah, they're not to be underestimated. Certainly not at home. And we've obviously given them a couple of hidings down there, but it's been a couple of sort of banana skinny type games for Liverpool at Bournemouth away. We obviously got beat. Was it last season or season before I went down? But anyway, it's never straightforward, let's put it that way. And this one even less so, because their form isn't to be underestimated. I think Arne Slot, he may well have made the raft of changes and left the big hitters behind midweek, regardless of who we were playing. But actually doing it has paid them all the respect in a way, because he thinks Bournemouth for the weekend, we can't take them lightly. I'm going to leave Salah, Van Dijk, Gravenberch, etc. on Merseyside for this one. So yeah, this is we've got a few big games coming up. We've got a few tricky tests coming up when you look at the Premier League fixtures as a standalone thing. This and the next game is always the biggest one, so obviously, but this one definitely looks like possibly the biggest for a little while.
It's worth mentioning as well, Lewis, the credit to Iraola and his team. They're doing this, and like you saw, you know, other teams are struggling with injuries and you know, maybe blaming results or justifying results perhaps on injury news. I'll just read you their injury, and it's Unal is striker injured, Evan Nielsen record signing striker to replace Dom Solanke injured, Senesai plays every week injured, Arujo, James Hill, Adam Smith, Alex Scott, Sinisterra and Julio Soler all out injured, and yet Iraola's found a way. And in the last couple of weeks, it's been with this dynamic front four that he selected. So he's got Semenyo, Kluivert and Brooks behind, and they're playing Owata up front as like almost like a false 9 type thing. And that fluidity and that movement, and they've all getting goals, they're all getting assists. he's coached them into a solution. He's lost his 2 strikers, he's lost loads of other players, and he's just gone, we'll find a way. And sometimes you do just stumble upon things, and this fluid front four that he stumbled upon, in the last 2 games now, they've had an attacker score a hat-trick. Clivert scores one up at Newcastle, Awacha gets one against Nottingham Forest. They had goals disallowed in both those games as well. It could have been more. They are showing that they are a very, very potent attacking side with that front four. And Liverpool's defenders are going to have to be at the game because they've caused problems for everybody in recent weeks.
Yeah, if we think that we're going to go into this and Bournemouth are going to be a bit more standoffish, sit back, it's not going to happen. They're going to go for it. They've got every right and every reason to. They're at home. And like I said, they've been so hampered by injuries. Lewis Cook was right back in the last game and he's a midfielder. Like, they're making makeshift players in different positions. And they're all doing it. And it's a testament that it's not the relying on individual qualities, it's the system, it's the way they're playing. Like you said, Iraola, he's got such a good track record in Spain. There's multiple danger men. This isn't like a side where you can take out Newcastle, for example, you mark Isak out the game or Gordon, you limit what they've got, so to speak. There's so many different players who can cause you problems. And we've made a habit in the past few games, I'd say, of we start quite slow. We do tend to be the side that's conceding the most chances, or we concede one chance and it goes in. We can't have that against Bournemouth because they're going to absolutely go for it from minute one in this because they've got every reason to. They're fighting for Europe at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult. It's not one we can underestimate.
It's worth mentioning as well, Dan, I mentioned there that attack and prowess, and it is really good. But again, whether it's through injury or sometimes you just stumble upon things, or good recruitment. The guy who signed most of these lads now works for us as it stands. But this back four, they've got of Cook, Kerkez at full-back, and then Zabarini and Houghton in front of Kepa. Because we saw in the home game, I'm not a big Kepa fan, but he's been kept relatively clean recently, and he's had a decent go of it. There were rumours that Chelsea were going to recall him. I think that's been ruled out, but that's how they've been doing. They're not just a team who we score 4, you score 3. They're good at the back as well. Houghton in particular has been one who's really impressed everybody. They are, again, they're pretty watertight, and in front of them they've got Ryan Christie and Tyler Adams just doing absolute donkey work and getting out the pitch, and I mean that in the best possible way. They're really good. They're a very solid team.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And they've got the runners in midfield, as you mentioned, protecting that back four. Christie's been an absolute revelation, really. He's kind of been in the round sort of Premier League team for a while. He's never really gotten headlines or found a home, but it feels like this season Iraola's unlocked something in him because I think he's been outstanding. Tyler Adams, of course, riding on a bad injury problems. He was plagued by injuries a little bit, wasn't he, post Leeds, but he's really come into his own in recent weeks as well. And as you mentioned, the back four, big fan of Dean Huijsen. I think he's a wonderful footballer. Bournemouth, hell of a coup to get him there because Roma and Juventus, his previous 2 clubs, he's a young lad, but one who's already got some big clubs on his CV, and I think there'll be some big clubs looking at him as well, and maybe even Liverpool at some point further down the line. But yeah, Lewis mentions obviously his namesake Lewis Cook at right back. That's not his position, but he's getting a tune out of him there. The standout one, you'd probably say, is Kerkez. I think he's brilliant.
He's class.
I don't know.
I'd say Houghton's the standout, but I agree, they're both really good.
I think Kerkez has done it for a little bit longer, personally. I think Dean Huijsen's come into sort of when Senesi got injured and all that. I think the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, you could probably look at him, but I think Kerkez over a prolonged period of time now, you could go, okay, he's got a real sort of sample size of top quality Premier League football under his belt. I know it's an easy thing to say given the Liverpool links, obviously I'm aware of that, but I think he's exceptional. I think how he deals with Mo Salah will be a big part of tomorrow, but not only that, how we stop him getting service into the box, because that's been a real key component for them. I know his assist numbers aren't incredible, but the 2 against Man City he got recently, he has got quality from those wide areas in terms of delivery. So yeah, they're a dangerous side in terms of the attacking outlets. They've got a very workman-like but with a bit of quality sprinkled in midfield. David Brooks is a good footballer, I like him a lot, and yeah, they're a force to be reckoned with at the back as well. So again, come back to it, it's anything but a cakewalk, this.
It's interesting because if you look at, for example, Justin Kluivert, he's kind of playing like a little number 10, or a second striker back in the day, whatever you want to call it, a bit of a throwback. And he's picking up those pockets of space, and he's dangerous. And we saw that in both games. We all saw what happened at Newcastle when he scores goals there. But he finds those pocket of space and he's got a shot on him. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be interesting. Liverpool don't really play with what you call a natural defensive midfielder, who you'd usually task with picking up a DM. It's going to be Ryan Gravenberch. We know that, and that'll be fascinating to see how Liverpool deal with that threat in particular, because not too many teams just play with that traditional number 10 anymore. Most are three up front with wide forwards and like a bit more of a workman like midfield. They've got it's almost a throwback to that position, and that he will provide danger.
Yeah, it's on the transition where Bournemouth are the most dangerous, and I think it's a really good point that Gravenberch, he's obviously going to start, but I think it might be more of a benefit having someone who's like him, who's a bit more mobile, because you can't be someone like, say, an Endo, who fantastic defensively, but he is slow, and I think this is the type of game where he could maybe get rings run round him at points. Bournemouth are going to be all attack. They're going to be all guns blazing going forward. You probably do need someone like Gravenberch who can get around a bit more, throw himself into it a bit more, and just... Yeah, it's a game where I feel like the miles are going to rack up in terms of how much we're having to move to cope with Bournemouth, because they are going to really pedal to the metal, go for it. And Kluivert... We saw it against Wolves where I think, was it he won? Ivan Nielsen won the hat-trick of penalties and he scored all 3 penalties. They're very good at overloading the box, Bournemouth. There will be constant players in there, so we're going to need people who can track back. And Gravenberch this season has proved that he's top tier at doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, Liverpool are going to need to be at their game because, again, Bournemouth are a top side. We're going to speak about Liverpool's team news, what Arne Slot might and might not do, and all that kind of good stuff after a quick break. Before we get to it, I've got a trivia question for everybody, including those in the live chat now on YouTube. Get your answers into this one. I think this is quite tricky. It might stump a few people, but I might be wrong. Let's find out. Liverpool's last trip to Bournemouth resulted in a 4-0 win for the Reds. But which Liverpool player made his first Premier League appearance for Liverpool in that game? Last time we went to Dean Court, 4-0, beat them 4-0. It was January 2024 who made his first Premier League appearance for Liverpool in that game. The answer to that and a look ahead to Liverpool's team news and all that kind of stuff after this quick break.
Hello over there, just wanted to tell you what you could win if you were in our Club Legend prize draw for January. This is a biggie. We're starting the new year off with a bang. It's this, a signed Liverpool shirt signed by Ian Callaghan, proper Liverpool royalty, the record appearance maker for the Reds. 857 appearances he made. Not all in this shirt, you'll be glad to know, but if you want to get yourself a chance of winning this, head to redmenplus.com, sign up as a Club Legend or upgrade your existing subscription and you might just be the lucky winner.
Welcome back. Yeah, I think I've got people stumped. January 2024, who made his first Premier League appearance at Bournemouth. It wasn't his first Liverpool appearance. I'll give you that. Any guesses, guys? The chat have gone. Craig says Federico Chiesa. I mean, didn't even play for us, Craig. You're miles off there, pal. Kyle's gone for Endo. Stephen's gone for Kwanzaa. Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo.
No.
All good shouts. But, well, actually, I'm not sure they are because Cody Gakpo signed the year before that. Any guesses?
Jayden Danns?
No.
Connor Bradley?
Yes.
Connor Bradley.
Connor Bradley's first Premier League appearance was Bournemouth away last year, 2024. Interestingly enough, he was the first Northern Ireland player to play for Liverpool since 1954 when he featured in that game in a top flight match. Well done, Lewis.
Thank you.
In fact, you're the only one who got that right. Andrew just jumped in with Bradley, but I don't know.
Copy my
I couldn't see if he was before or after. So yeah, it's interesting because you think Connor Bradley's been around forever. He only played his first Premier League game a year ago.
The only one.
He's like a mainstay in the squad now.
He's been on benches and that before, so I never would have guessed it.
And he'd played cup games, but he'd never ever featured in the Premier League until that game. He actually started as well. I think it was around the time Trent did, isn't he, after the Arsenal.
I had Luke Chambers in my mind as well, and I don't know why, because I know he played cup games. But
there you go. There's one for you. Anyway, congratulations to Lewis. You got that one right. Let's talk about Liverpool's team news then. Dan, we just watched the press conference. It's why, for those who were joining us on YouTube Live, we're a bit later than usual. Liverpool kindly moved the press conference back 2 hours to maybe just have mess with us, and maybe Arna just wanted to lie in, I don't know. What we learned, no Curtis. I think no one mentioned Curtis, so I'm presuming Curtis Jones is still out. He did say, Dan, that all three of Joe Gomez, Diogo Jota and Darwin Núñez are set to train today, and we'll see what happens for tomorrow. Núñez is obviously ill, so you'd like to think he'd be fit. Hopefully he's just over whatever illness he had. Gomez and Jota have been out, obviously more long-term issues. Gomez more so than Jota. What fantastic news. If Liverpool can go to Bournemouth, touch wood, with only one player missing, that gives you every chance against the team who we know are really good but are struggling with injuries themselves. That was really positive news from that press conference today.
Yeah, massively so. Massive. Any time it looks like any of them three really, but certainly Jota and Gomez are back training, that's always a major plus, because they are two, unfortunately, that have been hamstrung by injuries down the years, I think it's fair to say. So when you lose them, it's a major disappointment and it's a shame, and obviously you're gutted for them personally, but just in terms of what it means for Liverpool, because they can be key players for us. Obviously Joe Gomez plays and maybe had positions at the back, and I think his form was actually exceptional prior to the injury. Obviously we know what Diogo Jota's all about whenever he's fit and available. So yeah, getting those two back in particular is a massive boost for the now, for the medium term, and of course for the longer term in terms of the business end of the season. And it gives on a slot some real selection headaches as well, because I don't anticipate either of them two will be fit to start. Nunes is a different conundrum altogether, of course, probably should be okay, probably would have started midweek had he have not been ill. But it means that somebody's probably going to miss out on the squad, maybe even one or two. I haven't quite done the maths on it yet, but if we are as fit as can be minus Curtis Jones, it means that all the senior lads will be there, and one or two of them won't be in terms of actually getting named in the matchday team. So yeah, it's a fascinating one. It probably means likes of Trainioni, Jadon Nans, we've seen in recent weeks, won't be involved as well. So yeah, in terms of positions of strength and in terms of health, it's nigh on a clean bill. And as you say, when you compare that to Bournemouth, one of my major sort of causes for optimism heading into this game, actually, as good as Bournemouth are, is at what point is it one game too many? Because they have been going on such a shoestring squad in recent weeks. Like we've seen it last week, their media box was full of about 10 injured players. That's great, you can keep going, but at some point you just run out of gas a little bit, and I really hope it's this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to think so. On the Reds then, let's talk team news, and let's try and pick a team, Lewis, because it's interesting. The back four, I think the fact that it was Andy Robertson who came off in midweek and Costas played the whole game suggests the manager's going to pick Andy Robertson at left back for this one. That is a tough challenge, like I say, whoever he comes up against. However, I think I'm right in saying it's probably going to be Semenyo playing over there, he has caused Liverpool problems in the past, make no doubt about it. Are you comfortable with it being Robertson? Would you prefer it to be Costas? Do you think there's still a chance it's Tsimikas? What do we think of that left back?
No, I think Robertson does start. To be honest, I was shocked that he started at centre back the other day. I thought he was going to get the rest because he has looked a bit off at points. But I think he's probably going to be set to start. It is a little bit of a nervous thing when he does at the minute. No disrespect to him, he's class. We know he's class. He's been for years. But he has struggled against those wingers that like to cut inside, can make you look a bit of fool. Madueke, Saka, he struggled against Cunha. Like he can struggle against those type of wingers. And I just think against the Bournemouth side where they like to interchange, they like to swap positions, and you don't know who you're going to be marking at points, he might struggle. So I probably would have preferred Tsimikas. Again, it's not a disrespect to Robertson. He does seem to have that he has lost that yard of pace, so to speak, I think, at points. And it just makes me a little bit nervous when he's up against those type of players. But, he's proven me wrong I'm sure he'll do it.
Listen, it is worth mentioning, we're just assuming these kind of things. Like he very much could just play Costas. Like everything's Premier League and top flight footballers are used to playing 90 minutes Wednesday, 90 minutes Saturday. It's not a given that it's going to be Costas. That's going to be Robertson and not Tsimikas. But yeah, it feels like we're edging towards that way. And I get it, because the way the manager speaks, he still very much sees Andy Robbo as his first choice. But I think it would be remiss to say like Robbo isn't having the greatest time and up against this type of winger. I think it's right to say we've probably got concerns about it.
Yeah, because stylistically, Semenyo is a problem for any fullback, really, not just Andy Robertson. But I think just form-wise, Semenyo, we mentioned sort of the key figures and the standouts and the defensive perspective from Bournemouth. I think from an attacking point of view, again, Cliver and Utava's had a good little moment, but Semenyo's been brilliant all season long. So yeah, he will be a problem. It'll be a proper handful for whoever the left back is. I do think he will just go with Andy Robertson. I still think if you had Gunter on a slot Z, or you had a Champions League final 11 to pick right now, I think it would just be Robbo. Yep. But I think that gap, I think it was quite a chasm at times when it was Jurgen Klopp. I think he liked Costas Tsimikas. He certainly trusted Costas Tsimikas, but every time it came to Premier League, Champions League, whatever, it was always Robbo, and rightfully so. I think that gap has narrowed somewhat. Yeah. A, because of the new manager and what he wants from his fullback is slightly different as well. But just in terms of the form that they've shown since Arne Slot's arrived as well, Robertson's definitely dropped off. He's had good games. I think Aston Villa was exceptional, but he has just shown signs of a potential decline in his form, whilst Costas can just continue being Costas, and his level all stayed pretty much the same, but that just got closer to Robbo's, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's a fascinating one. I wouldn't be annoyed, disappointed, whoever it was, because, again, I think they're kind of much of a muchness these days, to be honest. But I think, if you ask Slot who his preference would be, and this is a massive game, we've already spoken about how big it is, therefore it's probably likely to be Robbo.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, again, I go back to Kostas Tsimikas played the whole
midweek
game
minutes,
midweek. Yeah, Andy Robbo played 64 minutes as a makeshift centre-back, and then he was off, so you would think it would be him. The midfield picks itself. I don't think it's a debate. So we could sit here for hours, but it's going to be Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai. We all know that. Curtis isn't ready.
It's not going to be Harvey.
It's not going to be Harvey, and Harvey Ryder's not going to start this one. So
you got Endo and the likes, and that.
It's not going to happen at this point. So I think we're pretty comfortable.
Are we comfortable with the back four?
What else could happen?
No, I'm just saying. You mentioned Conor Bradley with Trent.
There's just no way.
Okay.
Give it again. I think we'd just be wasting time. The interesting one.
Having
time. The interesting one will be up front. So. Mo Salah plays. We say this every week. It isn't even a conversation. So Salah's on the right. This is where it does get interesting, Dan, because Darwin Núñez's record against Bournemouth is good. He scored 4 in the last 3 times he's played them. But he was meant to play in midweek and got ill. The manager purposely left behind Luis Diaz, didn't take him. Which suggests he was always probably in line to start this one. He took Cody Gakpo, give him a half effectively in a few minutes, so he could get a nice round of applause back at Eindhoven. So it feels like before Darwin got ill, the manager's plan was to play Gakpo, Diaz, Salah up front. It's whether he's now changed that because Darwin's available or he sticks with it. Because there is something in a lad who just scores goals against a certain team and you just go back to that well. Or is he keen to go back to the fluid front three of Lucho as well? It'll be interesting to see what he does there, because, by the way, he could easily go Diaz left, Núñez up front. No, he doesn't have to play Cody Gakpo, although he plays him in all the Premier League games. It's a conundrum, and I wonder which way you think he's edging towards. Yeah,
it's an intriguing one. His get-out would actually be that last solution you just said there, really, given the Gakpo minutes in midweek compared to the no minutes for Darwin and Luis Diaz, of course. I think Darwin's illness may well have come as a blessing for his chances of starting this game, potentially, because had it been a 60, 70, 80, whatever in midweek, the likelihood is he wasn't in line for this. So, yeah, it's an intriguing one. A lot will obviously come down on. I'll be honest in terms of what side of the Luis Diaz up front coin I sit on. I don't like it. I don't think it's working necessarily. And there's a couple of games in particular that you look at and go, well, it has worked there. I don't think he's overly suited to it. That non-conventional 9 thing is a very specialist role, And what it has allowed, it's allowed him to interchange a lot with Cody Gakpo, and Cody Gakpo get into more central positions and score goals from there, which is great. The Diaz experiment, I'm not 100% sold on. Let's leave it at that. Therefore, my instant instinct would be to go with a striker, Darwin Núñez. We've seen the fruits of that particular decision when he came on at Brentford. You get a striker on the pitch, look what happens, you know what I mean? So a lot will depend on the type of centre-forward Arne Slot wants to pit up against Bournemouth centre-backs, of course. If it is a Bayer Leverkusen type thing whereby one of their centre-backs in particular is very good up against a proper one, then it's Luis Diaz. It's a no-brainer. But my preference, having said all of that, would be Gakpo and Núñez, personally, and leave Diaz as maybe an impact sub or something like that from the bench. I mean, Gakpo, you can't ignore Gakpo's form right now, coupled with what he did in midweek. I know it was only a cameo or whatever you want to call it, a jolly out in Eindhoven for him, scores a goal, so his confidence is sky high. Like, you just can't ignore him. As for Darwin and Diaz, again, I'll come back to my overriding point on the 9 thing. I'm just not seeing it, really. I like certain elements of it, but there's been too many games in recent weeks whereby I think we've got to a certain place on the pitch in terms of the final third, and we've looked into the box for, like, who's that runner, who's that option, and Diaz is hanging out a little bit to the left. Get in the box, mate. You know what I mean? You mentioned before about overloading the box. I think we're lacking that a little bit.
It's interesting because if Arne Slot was sat here, his argument would be Liverpool scored 6 at Tottenham, 5 at West Ham, and 4 against Ipswich. You know what I mean? So but then there's also been games where it's struggled. So you can look at it both ways. But I think if the issue on the box thing is actually that's going to be Szoboszlai's job and McAllister. That's what happens when Diaz plays in there. Someone else has to go in there because we can't. I don't think you can sit and say it's fundamentally broken. No, there's 15 goals in three Premier League games.
It just has flaws for me. In those games, you mentioned there, they're fine. West Ham were shambles at the time, weren't they? Just about to sack their manager. Ipswich Town, with all due respect, you know what I mean? Spurs.
I'm with you, mate. I would play a striker, but I'm just thinking.
You are right, though.
Yeah, the manager's decision, he was always...
justified a little bit.
His decision in midweek suggests he was going to play Diaz.
Yes.
Because Darwin Núñez wouldn't have been there. He doesn't play in the end because he was feeling unwell, but the fact that he went in the first place and was going to start, Lewis, suggests the manager, it almost felt like he picked his Bournemouth team worked backwards from it, except for Cody Gakpo, we wanted to give a little jolly out to because it was an emotional thing, and fair play to him, he done well with that one. It suggests it's going to be Lucho, and that will be fascinating because, like I said before, their centre backs have been pretty good at keeping keeping clean sheets, keeping the good strikers out. He obviously kept Newcastle to 1 goal. Nottingham Forest didn't score, and Wood and Isak and those teams in particular have been really good at attacking. With Zabarini and Huijsen up against Diaz, maybe the manager goes back to the Jonathan Tah thing. If they're big centre-halves, they want to be up against Darwin Núñez, let's give them Lucho and let Lucho do the Lucho thing.
But he needs space to... I completely agree. I think Diaz thing works against teams where the defence is piss poor, or they push fairly far forward, or it's free at the back where they can get stretched. But against the side that like Bournemouth have done this season, they've proved how defensively astute they are. It doesn't work as well. He only is able to do it when he's got space to run into. Whereas Núñez, when he's playing against this type of back four, he's the one making space for other people to go into, like Salah, like Gakpo, like Diaz if he's on the wing. I just don't think it'll work against these type of Bournemouth players who have kept out really, really top quality strikers this season, including Isak. So yeah, I'm not sold on it as a complete experiment. I don't mind it at points like your Tottenham, but I don't know if this is the match to do it.
Again, the flip side on that, Dan, is like I say, it is worth mentioning that if you go back to Newcastle and you go back to Nottingham Forest, they both played a typical centre forward and got no joy out of it. So maybe you look at that and go, well, if they didn't get any joy out of it, what makes you think Darwin's going to get any joy? Exactly. That's the counter argument, isn't it? The Newcastle goal was Bruno Guimaraes who scored that one. Like I mentioned, Nottingham Forest didn't really have a sniff, to be honest with you.
And they're old-fashioned type centre forwards.
And these aren't a team who are going to sit and park a bus. Bournemouth are going to be on they're going to win this. They're coming to win this game. They've got nothing to lose. They're looking at top 4 or top 5 rather as a genuine chance. They're coming to beat Liverpool. It becomes then, do you want Núñez running in behind, or you're happy with the Lucho thing? I think he's going to go Diaz. I think it's kind of tipped his hand towards that, and I can see the point. I will go Núñez, Dan, but I can see why in this situation he might go with Diaz.
100%. Yeah, I actually do think he will go Diaz, as much as I would be on the other side with you as well. And again, just as everyone was talking there about the Isak and the Chris Wood thing, I think, well, okay, there's your proof to go with something different then, ultimately. You know what I mean? Gives them something else to think about, maybe try and drag defenders away from where they'd like to be, their natural positions and stuff like that. It makes an abundance of sense. Where it didn't work was actually against Forest, because of Mirilo and Milenkovic. It was Diaz, and they just watched Diaz go and went, go on then, we'll say it. Exactly. We'll just kick it out. They were ball magnets that day. When it comes in, we'll get rid of it. I'm not bothered about you go wander over there all day long. With the Bournemouth lads, if they just decide to go, okay, I'm not used to this, maybe I need to go with him and track him, and then Dom Szoboszlai is in behind that third man runner, that would be the way Liverpool try and attack it, I'm absolutely certain. So yeah, I do think it'll be Diaz. Again, you touched on it earlier on, Steeler, the Núñez confidence factor. Obviously we're still not too far of a move from what happened at Brentford a couple of weeks, so do you want to build on that a little bit more again? And also the fact his track record against Bournemouth is exceptional. His record literally at this stadium is really good as well. And there's a happy hunting ground element to all of this, because strikers in particular like going to places, like going up against teams where they do have some success and some joy. So, and he likes shutting the fans up as well, doesn't he?
Years.
Yeah, Salah loves playing there, exactly. Yeah, so he knows the fans will get on his back, and he's got a good track record of silencing down there, Darwin. Yeah. So there is, again, much like the left back one, really, there isn't a wrong option. I don't think. I actually think Diaz is probably the answer for tomorrow. But again, I think our point is that over the longer term, I'm not sure about Diaz.
The interesting one is that the bench is going to be fascinating, because Aaron, can you bring my screen up? Is that okay? Because I've got Liverpool's bench from the last Premier League game they played. It was Kelleher, Tsimikas, Kwanzaa, Bradley, Endo, Elliott, Núñez, Chiesa, Danz. Since then, Liverpool have now got 3 players back, 3 senior players back into the squad. If they're all available, sorry, two. I do apologise. It's Gomez and it's Diogo Jota. Darwin was on that bench. I should clarify. They haven't got Curtis back just yet. So if he wants to get 2 of those on, listen, Jadon Danz is the obvious one. Jadon Danz misses out for Diogo Jota. If he wants to get Joe Gomez back onto his bench, this is probably, in terms of Liverpool's squad depth at the moment, Lewis, and where we're at, he has to probably leave out one of Tsimikas, Kwanzaa or Bradley. I don't think you need those 3 and Joe Gomez, given the fact that Joe Gomez can play full back as well. Like, Liverpool in good nick there. It's going to be harsh on whichever one of those he decides. My guess would be it would probably be Kwanzaa, because I think he would like to have Bradley and Tsimikas as genuine sub options. But fair play, like that, it goes like touch wood. You're talking about injury crisis around the Premier League. Liverpool are in pretty good nick there if they've been able to leave out senior players. And I know Gerald Kwanzaa is only a young lad, but he's a first team squad member. it's a pretty hefty bench that the Reds are going to have there. Alan Slott's going to have a lot of options behind them, which, again, if we're anticipating a tight game, a close game, against a team who are struggling in terms of numbers a little bit, that could be, if he's got any five of Jota, Elliott, Chiesa, Nunes, Timmercast or Robertson or Conor Bradley or Wataru Endo if you're winning, or he's got every base covered really. The manager can attack this however he wants.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. I think if any of them were to miss it, it'd probably be Quansah. But I honestly don't think Gomez is going to be involved. It might sound a bit daft because obviously you know how good he is, but I think he's just coming back off a bit of a not hefty injury, but he's been out for a significant amount of time. This might be a bit of a heavy game for him to go, right, I might need you for the last few minutes against Bournemouth, who we've seen how fast they are, how good they are in transition. He'd probably be the one who I think isn't going to make the squad. Jota, he might try and rush him onto the bench a little bit because we need the options there. And like I said, if Diaz doesn't work, if Nunez doesn't work, Jota's proven when he comes on, he makes an impact. So it is a conundrum. And it's mental how you go back 2 years even, and how threadbare we were on the bench to suddenly we've got too many players. Like, it's such a mental situation to be in. And we're talking about like Diaz and Nunez being like, who starts, who plays. What a great problem to have, where you don't know which of these near world-class players or world-class players you're going to play with this week or next week. But yeah, this is probably the competition. Harvey Elliott touched on it, the love and the competition at the minute, the love and how much they're all having to compete for their places. They're all on the same page. And I think this is going to bring the best out of them. It's going to challenge people, especially Quansah, who's stepped up recently. It's going to be really, really fascinating to see who goes on that bench.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be, and that's the last thing, and he's got options there as well. Like, if this game is what you think, I think it's going to be, I hope I'm wrong, we'll win 7-0, but if it's going to be tight and he's going to be able to change this game however he wants. If Liverpool are winning and he wants to shore her up, he's going to have options. If you need a goal, if there's goals on that bench, Touchwood, Jota's available to go. There's goals. One of Nunes or Diaz or Gakpo will be on the bench. There's goals. Harvey Elliott scored again at this moment in time. Chiesa looks a threat. He's got goals there, but if he wants to shore her up, and he's got Costas, he's got Endo, he'll have a centre-back, he'll have Conor Bradley. I go back to all bases covered pretty much, mate.
No, absolutely, yeah, and that's been decisive, hasn't it, in recent weeks, that strength and depth from the bench and that ability to change games from the bench has just been so important. And that's kind of what set us apart a little bit. I always go back to, it was the Brentford weekend, of course, and obviously we've seen Arsenal drop points later on, and Mikel Arteta made a point post-match of saying we weren't able to basically do what Liverpool have just done and bring on a top-quality attacking option that can transform everything that's happening, basically. So yeah, it's been really, really pivotal to us, and that was at a time whereby, and I love Jayden Danns, anybody who's watching me speak in life will know that, but all of a sudden he was probably on that bench, you know what I mean, and now we're dropping him from it and bringing in Diogo Jota, a seasoned Portugal international, who the one thing he does do, he frustrates the life out of people with his injury track record, but he scores goals whenever he's available. He scores goals, so yeah, often from the bench as well, and often decisive ones later on in games. So yeah, the ploy from Arne Slot in terms of his squad management, his rotation, has been very deliberate all season long. It's been very impressive all season long as well, actually, and it's got us into a position, whether we've all agreed with every single decision he's made along the way or not, it's got us into a position now whereby we're talking on the 31st of January about dropping a senior lad from the bench, because that's how many fit and available stars we have available. Unbelievable. Bournemouth, any other manager, not just Antonio Hill, will be absolutely, completely and utterly jealous of the situation that we're in right now. And again, if we are going to go deep in all four competitions that are available to us right now, that's going to be a massive part as to why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we stumbled on an 11 there that we think he's going to choose, and it was. I think we're all right. And
picks itself essentially,
and options to go with from there as well. I will be asking you for your score predictions, and I think the game is going to be a bit later on, guys. Before we do, we always at this stage of the show try to have a little look around the Premier League. We're going to bring the fixture up in a second. If I was a good host, I'd have had them ready. I'm a good host. I've got them ready. What else happening in and around the Premier League this weekend? Tomorrow starts with Forest versus Brighton. You've got Newcastle, Fulham, Everton. David Moyes' Blues are back against Leicester City. Ipswich, Southampton, the relegation 6-pointer of all 6-pointers. There's us v Bournemouth. You've got Wolves, Villa as well. I suppose the big one, and we're skating around it, it's Arsenal, Manchester City. We know how big a game that could be for Liverpool. If whatever happens at Bournemouth, we're all going to be watching that game with the hope, I guess, and it's mad to say this, that it's Man City who actually win. It's been so long where it's been the other way around, where we've been desperate for someone to take points off City. Now we're in the other boat. I just think there are both two games here this weekend. Liverpool going to Bournemouth and Arsenal hosting Man City. where there's a realistic chance of the top two dropping points. I don't think there's any sort of shock if Liverpool don't win at Bournemouth. I'd be annoyed at it, but I think there are certain games where you think they could drop points there, and this is one of them. Like, for example, it would have been a massive shock if they drop points against Ipswich, for example. Bournemouth away is a different kettle of fish. Everyone else has dropped points there. This wouldn't be a big surprise. Man City are back in a little bit of nick. We'll see how they go. So it feels like this is a massive weekend in the title race. Whatever way it goes, I would be shocked if both Liverpool and City and Arsenal win, is what I'm saying. So it feels like this could be a massively defining week. If it goes Liverpool's way, that's huge. If it doesn't, all of a sudden Arsenal are getting a little bit more buoyant.
Yeah, and absolutely. Yeah, as you say, that if results do go the way we hope over the weekend, then everything's coming up.
You're almost at a hand on the trophy, a couple of fingers on the trophy.
I think the songs and the moods might change somewhat over the weekend, potentially. Let's put it that. I mean, there'll be an opportunity for us to do that, of course, when we play prior to them, but you know what I'm getting at. I think everything's coming up Liverpool Monday morning, if that's the case. But yeah, there's no two ways about it. Liverpool have had a couple of, relatively jeopardy-less, which isn't a word, games in recent weeks. Obviously, the Lille one had a little bit riding on it, but not really. The magnitude wasn't quite there. Likewise, Ipswich, because you mentioned there, Ipswich at Anfield, you'd imagine whatever that game looks like, Liverpool prevail in the end, and obviously we did quite comfortably. And of course, midweek was very much the dead rubber of all dead rubbers. So to go from that 3 into a game tomorrow, which is absolutely huge and has massive significance and looks like a real test on paper, is a big jump rather, and a big leap, which is really tricky for us to deal with, but I'm backing us to do so, especially with the squad we have available. And as you mentioned, when you look ahead a little bit further to what could then happen on the Sunday, it feels like not since the days of like Sean Goat and Paul Dickov I wanted Man City to win a game of footy, but here we are. I think I'll probably take a draw. I know that gives Arsenal a point, but I think I'd rather a draw. I feel a bit dirty asking for City to win anything, you know what I mean?
I'd rather them win.
Would you?
Yeah, because I know some people are scared of City.
If we win, I'd take the draw.
Yeah, listen, I would take the draw, but I would prefer City to win. It's interesting because these two teams, they've been at each other for a few seasons in particular, last two in particular. Like City's record in the Premier League against Arsenal actually is pretty strong. I know they've had, I think there was the League Cup, sorry, the Charity Shield game, wasn't it, and whatever. Arsenal winning the Premier League in October 23, it was 1-0. It was a very late goal, seem to remember, but the last two games have been draws. Before that, City had won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It tends to be to go City's way, or draw. The last two have been draws. Lewis, like you can't understate it. Whatever happens at Bournemouth, this is a massive game for Liverpool. It might be that you need City to win, so it's status quo because you've lost. It might be that you've drawn and you get a point gained. It might be that you've won and you're thinking, oh my God, this is really opening up for us. It's going to be all eyes on Arsenal v Manchester City Sunday at 4. How do you see that? How do you think that's going to go, that game?
Like, my head's telling me it's going to be Arsenal. I think just because of the way obviously they've not been great, but they're still getting results here and there. But something in my heart's telling me that City at the minute, the way they're going, they're unbeaten in the last 6 in the league, I think it is. They had that comeback.
They've got better league form than Arsenal.
They've got better league form than Arsenal. They have started to find a bit of rhythm. I'm still not convinced by them, but there's something in my heart that's telling me that I think City could get one over on them here, and I really do think City
Arsenal are averaging roughly 2 points a game, 2 points a game, Dan. Their last 5 games, 1 draw, 1 draw, 1. I mean, if it's Arsenal of the season, they draw this game because that's kind of what they've been doing. They haven't been able to string win after win together. I think it's like no more than 3. They really struggle to do it. City in the last 5 won 2, then they had to draw, and then they've won another 2. They've been in pretty good nick, and like I say, they obviously they had a massive game midweek. In the end, they actually didn't take that much out of them. They had a scare, but then they're relatively comfortable. So, even last weekend, they have the Chelsea game where they have an early scare and they come back. They're not quite Manchester City, all-conquering Manchester City, because, listen, they got battered by Paris not that long ago. But, 3-6 beating in the league, beating Ipswich 6, beating Chelsea at home. Before that, the draw at Brentford where they were up and then they weren't. 2-0, 2-2, wasn't it? They're not quite Manchester City, but they're certainly better than they were, say, 2 months ago, and they couldn't buy a result.
No, that was Southampton levels of form on it at the time. No, you're right, and I think the reason Arsenal haven't been able to keep pace for us up until this point is that sort of lack of consistency, albeit very consistent form. You mentioned a moment ago, and I think if City are gonna show the world, I think they've started to just sort of drop it in that they might be getting back to something like the usual selves, or don't forget about us, maybe, is probably more to the point, because I don't see them put anything like a title charge down this season. But just saying, yeah, I know we've not been at it. I know we had that major wobble in the middle of the season, but don't worry, come next time around. Obviously, the transfer business has kind of helped along the way with that sort of general feeling and narrative around the football club as well. Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for them to really put that market down. Not for this season, but for longer term, and say we are still a proper football team. Pep Guardiola hasn't lost it. He hasn't, given up. He hasn't thrown in the towel. The players still want to fight for the badge, etc., etc. So yeah, I just hope that is the case, because again, if we do the business tomorrow, I actually don't relish the prospect of watching that game unless we win. You know what I mean? Having to really hope that City do something for us is not a nice place to be whatsoever. But if we win that game, I know that's an obvious thing to say, because but if we win that game, so all of a sudden Sunday is the best thing that's ever happened. You know what I mean?
I don't want to put this into the atmosphere, but I'm going to think, like, if Liverpool don't win tomorrow, Lewis, the title's not over. It's not game over. It'd be disappointing, of course. Like, but
if Arsenal then do,
it's a
big old swing, that though.
Yeah. Well, they're now 3 points behind it, and Liverpool will still have the game, which is against Everton down the line. It's not ideal, of course, it's not. But Liverpool have earned themselves a bit of wiggle room. All the pressure is still very much on Arsenal. I think we have to, no matter what happens tomorrow, I think you'd have to kind of say that way. I still think Liverpool can get the job done. Of course I can. But listen, if they don't, it feels like Arsenal, They just need to be perfect, and this is where Liverpool have got themselves into a position, is that they have to beat Manchester City, and that's never an enviable place. We've been there before. It's a difficult place, and it's worth mentioning City, by the way, are very much in a Champions League race. We think fifth is probably going to get a Champions League spot, but City are fourth, but they're only 1 point above seventh. Like, they are not clear. They need points, and the fact that they've been drawn against Real Madrid in the Champions League, one route to getting in the Champions League is winning it. Well, You've got to slay the dragon again, like, we know that. Listen, we know a gauntlet to potentially Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or Celtic, all due respect to Celtic. Then they've got to go on it. So it feels like there's pressure on it elsewhere. I don't think Arsenal deal with pressure particularly well. The last 2 seasons, to be fair, they've had good winning runs towards the end, but it's always been chasing. I think if Liverpool win and make a big gap, so if Liverpool win and are 9 points clear before they even kick off with a game in hand, at that point the Emirates is tetchy. It's tetchy, and that's the opportunity Liverpool have got. Do you think that's what they're going to do, Lou? Do you think Liverpool are going to win?
Against Bournemouth, is that?
Yeah. Well, who else, mate?
No, I thought you meant the league.
I was like, Bournemouth prediction.
Every game ever.
He was talking about the league, and I was like, win the league. Well, that's a bit soon, isn't it? No,
Liverpool Cricket Club.
Plymouth on Wednesday.
That's the true test. Look, I think we've shown this season that we can handle the pressure, and even in matches where we've struggled, Fulham, Brentford, like Newcastle, there's been so many games where we have struggled in those games. We've still been able to come out with something. Arsenal haven't been able to do that in certain matches, and Aston Villa for them was a key example of we just drew. We just scraped through. They had the chance to sort of close the gap. They didn't, and they're showing time and time again that when the pressure does start to get to them, they can capitulate. And against City, who, yeah, you're absolutely right, they've had a poor season, but like you touched on, they're building for the future. Pep signed a new deal. Haaland's just signed a massive deal. They're still bringing in players. There's a bit more of a feel-good energy around it.
And they're scoring goals.
And they're scoring goals. They're getting back to that sort of positive energy where against Arsenal, who are going to be tetchy and cagey, who if we've extended our lead against Bournemouth, they're going to be in panic stations to an extent. They could capitulate again like we've seen in the past.
It feels like that. Like, I look at this, I'll go back to City very quickly. Their last few games, I'll go back and say since the turn of the year, 4 against West Ham, 8 against Salford, don't have to worry too much about that one, 2 at Brentford, 6 against Ipswich, 2 against PSV, 3 against Chelsea, 3 against Club Brugge. They're back in goal scoring form, City, you know what I mean? They're not always winning those games because the defence has been iffy, and Arsenal will definitely have a look on that, but that's what gives you a bit of hope. I always think when a team plays against a contender, how do they get goals? City are back to doing it now. They had a spell where they weren't, but they very much are back on goals going form. You wouldn't be shocked if they score 1 or 2 at the Emirates.
No, far from it. No, I think that sort of nervousness around the Emirates potentially, providing we do our job tomorrow, is something Man City will definitely have to capitalise on. Obviously, albeit maybe almost certainly not the season they would have envisaged at the start of the campaign, them going toe to toe with Arsenal again. This is still again an opportunity for City to say, listen, we are a thing, you know what I mean? And getting one over their rivals for the past 2 years for the title would be a big statement, a big way we should do that. So yeah, they're back in some sort of semblance of themselves. Obviously, we know Erling Haaland is just a goal machine, and I just think as well, again, this all hinges on Liverpool getting our 3 points tomorrow. I think if that game does start going the way Arsenal fans don't want it to, City do look themselves, they do look confident, they do have a lot of possession, they are creating moments, not even goals necessarily, creating chances. Listen, a big factor in that may well be the referee as well, because all of a sudden they've got a real sort of vendetta, or they think the whole world's against them when it comes to those particular officials. So yeah, I think that's got potential, that game, to turn really ugly for us, not just in terms of the scoreline, but in terms of what it means. Because I take your point on the points, whereas if Liverpool don't win and Arsenal do, it's not the end of the world, because it isn't, because points are points. But a little bit momentum, confidence, where you're at in terms of the squad, where you're at in terms of your belief, they're the things I'm thinking of this weekend. This weekend has a potential to be a real swing in that, not just the points.
Predict both games, Dan. Go on.
Okay, go on. I go Liverpool 3, Bournemouth 1. I think we're going to flex our muscles tomorrow. And 2-2 Sunday.
Well, Desmond.
I was great 3-1 to us against Bournemouth. City or Arsenal? 3-2 City.
I think we win 2-1. I think Arsenal win 2-1.
Status quo.
Status quo.
Boo.
As long,
I'm up for this being the pivotal week.
I am as well, but as long as we win. As much as I've bigged up City there, I still think Arsenal will just score.
We need to go into this.
Gabriel, just put Gabriel on your coupon, because they're going to just score off a free kick. That's kind of what they're doing at this moment in time. We've got a super chat from Jesus Christ. I mean, okay. Liverpool have game changers, Arsenal don't. Gakpo, Salah, Diaz, Jota just go and win a game on their own. Arsenal just don't have that. Thanks very much. It turns out Jesus lives in Australia, because they're $5 Australian super chat. Cheers.
$5.
$5 Australian, yeah.
All that gold, frankincense and myrrh, and that's what we get.
You can turn that 5 into...
It's true, actually.
You can do what you want.
I'm only very much joking.
Thank you very much, Jesus Christ. We very much appreciate your super chat to the channel. Yeah, so... You're predicting Liverpool are going to be... Let me work it out.
9 the game.
You think we win?
Yeah, and they draw, don't they? So yeah, so
they
7.
They win. Well, no, that's 8 then.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. So I had them losing them for a second.
Yeah. So you have Liverpool having an 8-point lead with the game in hand by the end of this weekend. Yeah. You've got 9. Mm-hmm. That's almost
confidence.
No, I'm with you, man. Yeah. I'm sticking with 6. So
okay.
We'll find out.
Sorry, I forgot what match we were talking about too.
Yeah. Don't worry. But either way, yeah. Hopefully, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, and then I hope I'm half right. As long as Liverpool win, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Guys, thanks so much. Just let you know, watch along tomorrow, me, Paul and Dan in the studio. The game kicks off at 3 o'clock. We'll be live an hour and 20 minutes before that. So that is 20 to 2 UK time. We are live all the way for the build up, and then about an hour after the game as well, and of course the watch along of the game. Come and join us. They've been fascinating games recently. Obviously we've had absolute balls doing them, especially in the Premier League. Hopefully tomorrow is another moment. The last time me and Paul did the watch along, I nearly broke the place with a high-pitched scream. If that happens again this weekend, I will be made up, and I apologise in advance. Thanks to Lewis, thanks to Dan, thanks to Adam for producing. Thanks all you guys for watching or listening. Come and join us for the watch along on Saturday afternoon. Take care, everyone.